So when the Spanish and the Portuguese eventually arrive in the Americas, they meet the natives for the first time and they kind of realize that, well, they're two very different groups with two very different ideas. So, I mean, gosh, why the hell not but accept fight over who's right and who's wrong, even though they're just silly things like religion and gender roles and family and land use and power. Oh my gosh. This is APUSHLESS, the show where I attempt to teach the AP United States history curriculum in such a way that you don't have to put in any effort at all. That is right, there's no homework, textbook readings, writing tests, and primary source documents. I am your fellow student and host, Trevor Bushnell. We would just pop you right into the episode, except that we kind of have to battle with you in order for you to listen to this. Support for APUSHLESS comes from Google Sites. As you can tell by this side project podcast of mine, I like taking on new projects because they keep me busy and entertained. Especially when you're taking a class like APUSH. And since this is more of a hobby for me, I need an easy and effective way for me to get my ideas out to the world free of charge. This is where Google Sites comes in. Google Sites is a website creator like Weebly or Squarespace that is totally free of cost, outplaying Squarespace in that regard. And aside from purchasing a domain, there is no upgrade cost to get everything Google Sites has to offer, making it better than Weebly. Their easy-to-use interface is so simple that even someone who's never had any experience coding at all can create a stunning website with Google's interface. You can edit your website on your smart device even for updating on the go. And now my listeners can also check out my website. Go to sites.google.com/site/APUSHLESS, all lowercase, to get episodes, show notes, and resources. And go to sites.google.com to begin creating your own website free of charge. So in the 16th century, divergent worldviews became increasingly evident between the Europeans and the Indians, and both groups attempted to assert worldviews about religion, gender roles, family, land use, and power. Now let's talk about interactions, trade, other cultural adaptations, that kind of thing. So each side often misunderstood the cultural assumptions of the other side. So in the process of colonizing America, each side adopted useful aspects of the other party's cultures, while not necessarily straight up changing to the other people's culture. So for example, let me give an example, and maybe it'll help you guys understand a little bit better. So the natives adopted Christianity, but they adapted it to meet the needs of the natives. So while some natives straight up did adopt it and fully practice Catholicism, some natives infused their spiritual beliefs into the traditional religious practices of Christianity. So that's a good case of where the natives don't necessarily converge all the way to Catholicism, but they still take use of it in their culture. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some resistance of attempting to try and not take the culture of the there were natives that didn't want the culture of the Europeans. So as Europeans attempted to assert their worldviews on natives, the natives began to rebel and attempted to maintain a sense of political and cultural autonomy. So let's talk about some native resistance in New Spain. Responses to the natives were actually quite widely varied. They fled from Spaniards, abandoning their homeland, and these migrations led to population pressures and conflicts elsewhere in the Americas. Great job, guys. You run away from one conflict. It's like running away from the pot of boiling. I don't remember how that phrase goes. It's like you run right out of the flame into the boiling water or something like that. You guys know the pun I'm trying to talk about. Oh my gosh. The natives also engaged in violent and passive forms of cultural resistance. For example, the Guale people lived near the Spanish mission in St. Augustine, which is one of 4 Spanish missions. Now, as missionaries tried to put the Guale people in mission camps, a revolt known as Juanilo's Revolt occurred in 1957, which eventually killed several missionaries because the Guale people didn't really want to be converted. Spanish conquistador Juan de Onay obtained the land of the Acoma peoples in the 1590s. The Acomos were a group of native Indians that were around the land that Juan de Onay conquered. In 1598, the Acomos resisted Spanish orders to hand over supplies needed for the Acomos to survive in the winter. So, what did they do? Oh, let's go ahead and make world history PG-13 by attacking the Spanish, killing 15 of the Spaniards, and then the Spaniards attacked the Acomos with cannons, killing 800 natives. Whoa, PG-13 American history. That's actually world history. Gosh, I can't teach, can I? Anyway, back to the rebellion. The survivors were put on trial, and the punishment was to cut off a foot for males over the age of 25. Over 80 men had 1 foot cut off, and the remaining 500 Acomos became slaves for the Spanish. And they all lived happily ever after. Not! Let's talk about the debates of perceptions of American Indians. Now, before the age of exploration, Europeans had little to no knowledge of people who were different from them in terms of culture. The Spanish and Portuguese didn't really know what to make about the natives that they found in the Americas, and debates arose about how civilized these natives were compared to Europeans. So one of the things that they had was talking about developing racist ideas about white superiority. So as Europeans conquered the natives, racist ideas developed to justify subjugation of non-white peoples. The ideas grew out of earlier racist notions in Europe. The Spaniards included traditional notions of the pure blood, those without Jewish or Muslim ancestry, and the pure bloods were superior than in the New World. And then they set up the elaborate hierarchy of classes based on if you were pureblood or not, and we talked about the hierarchy of classes in the last episode. If you did not catch the last episode, go check it out. It was a lot of me talking and talking and talking, but, that's still something you should go ahead and check out. Then there were people who debated over the actions of Spain in the New World. So, we go ahead and go back a little bit. As the Spanish conquistadors were reaching Spain, there was a heated debate that ensued about Spanish behavior in the New World. We're shifting from the natives at this point. Bartolomé de las Casas wrote a short account of the destruction of the Indies, which criticized the actions of the Spanish. That book, by the way, was written in 1542, but published then in 1552. And then he believed that, people believe that he paved the way for African slaves over native slaves, which actually is true, but then he eventually advocated that slavery should just be abolished entirely. Then there's Juan Ynes de Sepulveda. Again, I'm only in Spanish 3, I can't speak Spanish names and that kind of thing. He defended the Spanish brutality over the natives. He believed that the natives were beings of an inferior order, and that since they couldn't do anything beyond manual labor, they were natural slaves. And the battles in the New World against the natives that we talked about, those gruesome battles, he just claimed that those were just wars. And his beliefs would resonate with the Spanish as they continued to conquer the New World. That's sort of a power battle that was going on at this time in Americas with Europeans. APUSHLESS is brought to you by SoundCloud. SoundCloud is the best way to find all the music you like for free. You can search for certain artists you like, or if you're just interested in listening to a certain track like Super Mario Bros. Theme or a Phineas and Ferb title song, you can search for just that too. On top of that, if you enjoy creating music as a hobby, you can create a SoundCloud account and upload the music that you create for others to listen to. You can also design the space where people listen to your tracks by changing your profile picture, giving a short sentence about what you do, or giving a web link to where people can find out more about you. And now, my listeners can get episodes of this show off of SoundCloud. Go to www.soundcloud.com/APUSHLESS. Or, if you're using the mobile app, go ahead and search up APUSHLESS. And to begin searching for music and uploading your music for free of charge, go to www.soundcloud.com. APUSHLESS is brought to you by SoundCloud and Google Sites. The producers on the show this week were Hello Flutter for providing this amazing music, and me, Trevor Bushnell. To find the show notes for this episode as well as any other amazing resources to help you learn about the history of the United States, go to sites.google.com/site/APUSHLESS. That is all lowercase. Find all the episodes on APUSHLESS on SoundCloud with the newest episodes on top and the oldest episodes on the bottom. Check it out at soundcloud.com/APUSHLESS. You can also download our episodes if you would like the download option. The link is on the sites.google.com/site/APUSHLESS/episodes. If you'd like to contact us for any reason or to leave an amazing review, email us at feedback.apushless@gmail.com. I absolutely love reading your emails and hearing what I do that's great and what I should change. We're a group of history nerds based out of the small Pacific Northwest town of Fresno, Washington. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.